Okay, so now that this is dry, we are going to do two things. First, we are going to paint where our apples go white. So I'm going to put white on my paint tray, and I'm going to put it in the middle because after I do this, I'm going to mix my white with the color. So I'm going to use this brush, and I am going to create an apple that is sitting in there. This apple is going to be 2 bumps. And this is just so that when our red shows up, our red is bright. So don't feel like your white has to be perfect. So I'm bumping that in like the bottom of an apple. Or top of an apple, I guess. It really doesn't matter. And then I'm going to make a bump for one more right here. So there's my 3 apples in my bucket. So then down here, I'm going to make one singular apple that's like fallen out of my bucket, I guess. I'm not a very good apple collector. I'm just going to paint that in so that when I do my red, it'll show up super bright. And again, your apples can be, you can put as many apples as you want in there. You can put as few as you want in there. I am now going to take my yellow and mix it with the rest of my white. So I just added a dot to the dot of white that I had left. I'm gonna mix that up really good to get kind of this light yellow. And I'm going to paint a band the width of my paintbrush. Right across the top underneath my apples. And then I'm going to paint one more and kind of curve it to give my basket a little bit of a curve. Just enough paint to do that. Right about the middle, kind of like an old wicker basket or an old bushel. Kind of clean my paintbrush off there. It does not need to be perfect. This is your painting, so it shouldn't look just like mine. Your painting should never look just like someone else's. So now that I've done that, I'm going to take a small brush again. It's the same one that I used for black earlier. And I'm going to use my raw umber. Just a little bit of that to add some details to my basket. So I'm going to use a wet paintbrush. I'm going to kind of put some curved lines along there. Curved that one a little bit more than I wanted to, so it looks a little funny. Alright, and I kind of messed up on this line, and I'm not sure. I might go back and fix it. So now I'm going to add one more right along the edge here, kind of to give it that curve. And then I'm going to add some dots, kind of like tacks that would have held this band together. My dots are nowhere near perfect. Just making sure I'm lining those up. Then I am also going to just kind of add a shadow underneath there. Same with this band. This is why I wasn't too worried about how nice that band on the bottom turned out when I was running out of. Because I knew I was going to go over it. And notice I'm not making it a solid line around that band. Just enough to kind of outline it. I did not do the top up by my apples. But I am just going to kind of round out this edge. But you don't have to if you don't want to. I just don't like the look of my edge. And there's my barrel. And then I will let this dry for a little bit before I come back to do my red and my green. All right, for our reds on our apples, you are going to take your primary red. I got way too much on there, I think. And your cadmium red, put a dot in there together, and kind of mix them together to get a more royal looking red and not a pinkish red. So I'm going to use one brush to stir, but I might not use this one to also paint it. So I'm just mixing it together. And then I am painting right over my white. This is not a brush I want to use. This is why we have multiple brushes, so we can use different ones. And I did not let my white dry all the way, so I'm going to have to do a couple layers of that. So if you were like me and you were impatient and didn't let your white dry, you might have to do 2 layers of red, which is not a bad thing. So I'm definitely still seeing my white through that, so I'm probably going to have to go back over this with a second coat of red, but that's not a big deal. I've made a lot, so I should be able to go back over that. So just remember, if you don't mix those 2 reds together, your red is going to look pinkish. And you want that kind of orangish red apple just to make it look brighter. And also remember to be patient. So I'm going to let that dry. And while I let that dry, I'm just going to close my paint tray. So my brown, my red, and my black that I'm still using is going to stay wet.